The Cincinnati Bengals 2025 schedule is here, and I have one question. Why do the schedule makers hate the Bengals?
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jake Liscow. He's James Rapien, and we're your hosts of the Locked On Bengals podcast, covering the Cincinnati Bengals here on Locked On Bengals since 2016. The everydayers already know that. If you're not an everydayer, you'd like to become one, as we'll have you covered throughout the offseason, into training camp, into the regular season, all calendar long, all year long, all year round. You're in the right place. You can hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss an episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. And shout out to all of you who make us your first listen as well. Today, James, we dive into the Cincinnati Bengals 2025 schedule. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but only a little bit. When I asked the question, why do the schedule makers hate the Bengals? As I look through this schedule and try to parse it in all the different ways, they were always going to have one more home game than road game this year. So that's not anything the schedule makers did. There's so many imbalances here. It's a little frustrating on first glance the way this schedule falls to me, looking at it from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, first game starting in Cleveland, instantly you're like, got to do that. Like, awful matchup. We know it. We know they don't match up well. But then just the first three of four on the road. At least two of those teams probably not just in playoff contention, but likely making the playoffs. And then your second home game is against arguably the best team in the NFC. Like, it is not easy to start. And there aren't really many easy chunks, buckets. If you want to break it down into quarters, it's an interesting schedule. But the thing that stood out to me at first when it came out was at Browns, then you're home. Then it's at Vikings, at Broncos, then you're home. And those two teams could be good. The Jags, who knows? Maybe they're upstart with their new coach. And then the Lions. And then you go at Green Bay. That 4 out of 6 on the road to start the season. They don't play their third home game until October 16th. And it's a short week against the division rival. At least it's a primetime game at home. Got one of those this year. But yeah, I think the early part, just from there's been a lot that's gone on the past couple of days about the travel standpoint and how they're only traveling like 8,700 miles. It's the lowest in the league. Fine. But they're going to be on the road a lot early in the season.
They have two stretches this year that they're 4 out of 6 games on the road. I'm just complaining at this point, to be clear, about things that are annoying to me. These probably aren't massive issues. There's probably not huge inequity here because they have more home games than road games, but they have 4 out of 6 on the road twice. They have a 3-game home stretch in the middle of the year, and they finish with 2 at home. So that 3-game home stretch in the middle of the year before the bye week is nice. And the 2 at home to finish a year is nice. But the inequity that stands out to me the most here, James, and I'm sure we'll hear stuff about, rest disparity and everything, but there's one game that stands out to me the most, and then there's one trend that stands out to me the most. And the one that I think might be the more annoying of the two is the time slot split for the home versus road games. When the Bengals are at home, they're playing predominantly at 1 p.m. There's a couple of TBDs in there for week 17 and week 18. We don't know those time slots or even days necessarily in the case of week 18 yet. But we don't have time slots for a couple of those games. But outside of that, at home, they do finally get a Thursday night home primetime game against the Steelers. But that's pretty much it. They have one other non-1 p.m. start at home. You look at their road games, and they have, 3 1 p.m. starts versus 3 primetime games and 2 late window games. All of these premium time slot games and primetime games this year are on the road. Again, after last year, they had a crazy primetime home road split. And the fact that can happen in back-to-back years is really what prompts the question, Like, what did they do to you, schedule makers? Why does this keep happening? Is it a coincidence? Like, it's unfathomable that the split could go this way 2 years in a row.
Yeah. And you look at those road prime time, and I'm going to focus in on one of them at Denver. Okay, Monday night. That's fun. It's kind of got the 2004 season. They were home Monday Night Football. Chad Johnson beat Champ Bailey deep, and I believe the Bengals won that game against Denver. So that was a fun one. That was Monday night. It ended the Monday night drought in Cincinnati. So I remember that one. So it's like, oh, okay, well, that's fun. In my mind, a lot of people listening and watching don't think that way. Fine. But on the road, that's a tough one. The Miami one, got it in December, by the way. I'm not going to complain there. But the Miami one, December 21st, Sunday Night Football at 8:20. But I don't know what it is with the schedule makers and their obsession with the Bengals eating crab cakes on a short week. But do you have to send them to Baltimore on Thursday night all the time? And this year, Thanksgiving night, and it starts. What is to me the toughest? You could say month, but I would say toughest 3 weeks for sure of the Bengals schedule, even with the mini bye built in there. The fact that you have at Baltimore on Thanksgiving night, then at Buffalo, and then Ravens at home. The Ravens twice in 3 weeks. I mean, the AFC North, everyone thought it was because of Hard Knocks, but a lot of these AFC North games in December again, and that Ravens one on a short week, I just, like, gosh, you got to keep going to Baltimore on a short week, and clearly they do. You might as well just book it for next year. They're going to do it. Might as well start planning from a Thursday perspective if you want to go watch the Bengals in Baltimore, because it's going to be on a short week. It's going to be a primetime game. Buckle up.
It's 3 years in a row.
Yep.
And we have seen the well-publicized home road splits for AFC North primetime road games that gets even more divisive on Thursday night road games. It's just 3 years in a row at Baltimore, Thursday night football. That is crazy. Like, I really don't know how that happens. It's Thanksgiving this year. It's their second Thursday night game. So this is a quote unquote bonus Thursday night game. But man, I would leave that one. I don't need that bonus. I'm good.
I agree. This was because I had some stuff ahead of time. Like I'm feel free to. This is the first game I heard of, and I was like, what? There's no way. Like, I didn't believe it. Like, there was rumors, like the Christmas Day rumor with Buffalo. Mm-hmm. I had heard Buffalo week 1. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously neither of those came true, but holy good. Like, Thanksgiving, fine. I get it. Do a holiday game at some point. It makes sense. It's Joe Burrow. It's the holiday. By the way, the Thursday game or the Thanksgiving games are crazy this year. Pretty good. But you have that. Fine. I don't mind that it's at night, but road against the Ravens, why not just flip that? Mm-hmm. Why not just flip that and have that Thanksgiving at home against the Ravens Thursday night? And that is it because it's their second Thursday night? Like, I don't know, but flip it to where when the Ravens come to town week 15, that's when you go to Baltimore for that 1:00 game. That's what I would have done. But obviously the schedule makers don't really give a damn what I think.
Not even a little bit. I mean, it would erase a lot of the complaints. If they have 2 Thursday night home AFC North games, I'm not complaining at all.
Well, then it's 2 primetime apiece, 2 road, 2 home. So both division games are here. Yeah.
We've hit on my biggest complaints here, which are the imbalance of home road time slots and that Thursday night game at Baltimore again. Like, that one is, I think we joked about this yesterday when we weren't recording. Like, man, can you imagine if they put them on the road in Baltimore Thursday night again? I'm pretty that's one of the worst case outcomes to me personally. And they can certainly overcome it. They can certainly win that game. We saw them come very close, should have won that game last year. And that's probably part of why they put it on the biggest Thursday night time slot of the year, because it was one of the best games of the year, most entertaining games of the year. But could have been in Cincinnati. like I don't have individual complaints about the other primetime games. I don't really like the Week 16 game in Miami. Wouldn't be remotely surprised if that gets moved out of primetime. Not even a little surprised if that happens. But there
Wow.
is a
They're low on
possibility
Miami.
of flex. Yeah, a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't know what else is happening that week. I didn't go look, but there could be
I'd be-
some division game that's much more interesting or some higher playoff stake at that point in the season.
I have a take on that Miami game.
All right.
We will get to that and much, much more because the schedule is here, Jake, coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and the NBA playoffs are in full swing. And the Indiana Pacers, they're just rolling. They're just rolling. Impossible to stop on offense. We'll see if they can keep it rolling all the way to the NBA Finals. It wouldn't shock me one bit. Wouldn't shock me one bit with how loaded they are, how they come in waves on offense. And if that happens, well, you're talking about a 2-hour drive to not just the Eastern Conference Finals, but maybe the NBA Finals. So if you live in Cincinnati and you want to check out NBA games, well, you can do it in person or you can do it at home. And the beauty is you can do it with FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And whether you're at a sports bar at home, if you're watching us and you want to live bet the NBA playoffs, you can do that. And whether it's same game parlays, props, live betting, live parlays, all in one spot. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up because if you head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, once it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. It's that simple. Throw $5 on the Pacers to win game one. If that happens, boom, you get $200 in bonus bets with FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
James, hit us with the take.
Well, I look at this Miami game. One, they granted my wish of it being in December.
Mm-hmm.
But the take is, of course, I would love to plan my travel personally around a night game.
All right.
Just for it to be a 1:00 game
Mm-hmm.
and it get flexed out of that night game. So then you get Sunday night on the beach and you can have a nice dinner. See, so selfishly, wouldn't mind that getting flexed out. But no,
I thought this was going to be a real hot take. Like, there's no way they're flexing that game out. The Miami Dolphins are going to be 11-4 at that point in the season. I was trying to count how many games.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Tua guy.
Yeah,
Haven't
big
you
Tua
heard?
guy. You
Yeah.
heard it here first. James Rapien, big Tua guy.
Can you say that in the same sentence, considering he's like my height? I don't know. Anyways, it's a big Kyler guy. Like he kind of,
You got to have solidarity with your hype brothers.
hey, I move like Kyler, not Tua.
The bright sides of the schedule. Shall we try to find them? Some of the silver linings here.
Sure.
The best thing about this schedule is the location of the bye week. From a high level perspective, a Week 10 bye is about as ideal as it gets on average. That is where your Super Bowl winners tend to have their bye. Sometimes between Week 9 and Week 12 is the typical time you see teams that make deep playoff runs have their byes. It is advantageous to have a bye in the middle of the season instead of the beginning of the season. So they didn't get stuck with a Week 5 bye. And Philly last year had a Week 5 bye. They overcame that. They won the Super Bowl. It's the first time in a long time the team has had to bye that early. So that's something that stands out as a positive. They got a favorable bye week there in Week 10, and that's coming off of their 3-game home stretch. So you get a stretch there from, yes, it's their third home game, and it doesn't come until October 16th, but they will not play a road game between October 12th and November 16th. So they go a month of no travel in the middle of the season from Week 7 to Week 10 with that bye in there.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a positive is having it there. I like the time of year too, just personally, because I'm going to shed that light on that. No, but the other benefit I would say is after being on the road a ton early, and we pointed that out, 3 straight home games going into the bye is it's awesome. And that's with a mini bye in there. Like it sucks to go from Green Bay at 4:25, short week, Thursday night, but at least you're at home for the Steelers. You get the mini bye, and then it's Jets Bears bye week. So it really does hit in a nice spot where, one, hopefully you're rolling going into the bye a little bit. Obviously, we'll talk about the hot start 50,000 times between now and September 7th when the season starts. But then at the same time, you have that reset where the Bengals have historically really ended the season strong and gotten hot in the back half. Well, now if they get hot in the back half and the streak picks up or they start to really get hot week 11 or week 12, you're just keeping it rolling back to back to back. That's a really tough stretch to stay hot, but you never know. So I do think that the weeks leading into the bye, all this travel that they have the first month and a half of the season, then they're homebound literally for 3 weeks. Then they can hit the beach for a week on the bye and then come back and get ready to go to Pittsburgh for a 1:00 game. I think that's a pretty fun stretch and really where they're going to have to make their hay from the middle of October through the middle of November.
Yeah. And the other thing that stands out to me as a potential positive, and we don't really know how this plays out by the time it's late in the season, but week 17, week 18, Cardinals, Browns at home, finishing the season against the Browns in week 18 is certainly different than finishing the season against the Ravens. And they get those Ravens games out of the way in a 3-week window, which is going to probably define the season, week 13 to week 15. Unless it's the beginning of the season. We'll talk about that, I think, in a minute here. But finishing the season with the Cardinals and the Browns at home, on paper, and I think the Cardinals could be feisty this year, don't get me wrong, but finishing with those teams at home is a relatively nice way to finish the season if they've got themselves in a good position at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, you're home. If you survive that month stretch, and maybe that Miami game isn't as tough, but Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, you're right. And can you be 7-4 going into that stretch and somehow go 2-1 over those 3? Like if you do that, then you really set yourself up because you go into Miami, you have the nice warm weather vibes. Good luck trying to guard Jamar in Miami. And then after that, it's 2 home games against teams. Arizona's not going to love playing in the cold. And then the Browns, we'll see what they are. We'll see who their quarterback is. There's just so much uncertainty there with what that team would be and can be by then. But I agree with you. I mean, if you can finish the year at home, not have to hit the road, because it was that was a tough Pittsburgh game last year, and their season was still on the line at the time. Talked a lot about Trey Hendrickson yesterday. Trey kind of slammed the door on things and was a big reason why they won that game. So it's tough to go on the road to end the season, even when you're playing for something. It's tough. So to be home is certainly a benefit.
Let's play a little game on that Browns week 18 game. Where do you set the over-under on number of starting quarterbacks for the Browns in the season by the time they get to that week 18 game? Like 3.5? 2.5 or 3.5?
It'd probably be 2.5, and I'd take the over because I think it'd be 3.
Because you're going to get – isn't Flacco back in Cleveland? Like Flacco's going to start at some point. Shadur's going to start at some point.
Flacco, Pickett, and maybe they trade one of these guys. Gabriel, Sanders. I think Sanders starts at some point. I really do. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you?
At some point. By week 18, if they're bad, why not?
I think he's better than Dylan Gabriel anyway, to be honest. So, yeah, I think at least Flacco probably starts week 1 if I had to guess. Kenny Pickett will linger and maybe get a start for whatever reason. And then I think Sanders ends up winning. And so maybe they move Gabriel, or maybe Gabriel beats out Sanders. Who knows? But I do think 3. Why wouldn't 3 of those start? And injuries happen too, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially Browns, because 40 years old.
And the Browns have their sordid history of starting infinity quarterbacks because they can't get it right. Yeah, a little fun over under for you for week 18.
Yeah. I would hit the over. I would hit the over for sure.
Let's finish up the show next by talking about the most important parts of this schedule. Maybe should have talked about this a little bit earlier. We talked about the bad. We talked about the good. Let's talk about the important here coming up next.
All right, Jake, the most important part of the schedule, and I'm looking right at it, the entire schedule, I'm saying. I honestly, I think it's got to be the first 6 weeks, and if you want to do it, then the first month. And the reason why, what'd you say?
I said it's hard to argue. There's two
Yeah,
parts, but it's hard to argue with that part.
the first month. I mean, because the first month you start in Cleveland, a place that you've really struggled to win at, a team that you've really struggled against. And I get last year. Last year was pretty unique. And then you come home for, again, I get it's Jacksonville, but it's a pretty unique situation there. The team could feel a lot different, and I do think that they have talent. And then you hit the road for two games against teams that are playoff bound potentially, and going to be tough environments, tough places to play. By the way, another gift from the schedule makers from my perspective: Minnesota in September. Sign me up, baby. But yeah, I think that first month, it defined last season. They couldn't get out of it. They couldn't get out of that hole, even though they tried. That first month really defined it. They should have started 3-1 last season, and they couldn't even get to 2-2. And that's the difference. That makes all the difference in the world. So going to Cleveland and winning is huge. Finding a way to be at least at 500 after the first month and probably have a winning record going into that Detroit game, because that's going to be a tough game too. I mean, it's not like it gets easy after that, but we just know that the first month has really impacted the Bengals. So finding a way to get off to a good start is just so huge. Most important part of the schedule.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. They need to get out of that stretch, that first 6-game stretch where they play 3 of their 4 NFC North games. So they have 1 AFC North game in that time. Obviously, AFC North record and winning in the AFC North is a huge part of this team's success. And for that, it's a later in the year issue. But if you can get through those first 6 games or first month and have a winning record, be 4-2 at worst after 6 games, you've set yourself up for success the rest of the season. You cannot deal with another slow start. So because of their history, it's impossible to look past the early part of the schedule and say anything other than they need to overcome the slow start issues. And to your point, we don't know exactly what these teams are going to be, but they're teams that you can't say one way or the other the Bengals should feel particularly good about right now.
Mm-hmm.
If they're good, you should feel good about them, but we don't really know what to expect from this defense right now. We don't know who their guards are right now. It looked like it was Dylan Fairchild and Cody Ford on Tuesday, but at this point in the offseason, can't really read into that. But just underlining the point there, they got to get out of that stretch in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
In the NFC North this year, the Bengals have had success against the NFC North, I think, in recent history. But this is the best it's been in recent history with the Vikings, Lions, and Packers, all teams that will be staking their playoff claims, even though the Vikings may have a bit of a questionable quarterback situation right now. Talented team.
No doubt.
Outside of that.
And the Bears are talented, by the way. I'm just talking about the NFC North. I know that's not that part of that gauntlet, but.
No doubt. They've added a lot of talent. They've stocked up with the rookie contract for Caleb up there. So you don't know what you're getting with the Bears, I would say, is why I'm not including them. They're less proven, but a lot of talent on that team. Can't really argue that. So you got the first 6 weeks. That is the start fast NFC North, 4 road games in 6 weeks part of the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the Steelers, Jets, Bears into the bye that we talked about. But this middle part of the schedule here, from week 7 to week 15, which is broader than I want to go, but you have 4 AFC North games there with the Steelers and the Ravens. Those AFC North games, obviously critical, but really got to focus, and we alluded to this earlier, on 13 to 15. Mm-hmm. Ravens, Bills, Ravens. Thursday night football in Baltimore, late afternoon, premium game in Buffalo in December, and then hosting the Ravens in week 15. If they're in a good spot and don't stumble out of the gates again, or trip and faceplant maybe out of the gates again like they did last year, those 3 games, 13, 14, 15, at Ravens, at Bills, Ravens at home, feel like they are going to be massive and difficult at that part of the year.
No doubt. That's the hardest part. Like the most important is basically because of history, right? Obviously, December games could matter a ton, and there could be a ton of value. And you hope that in September, what they do is they put themselves in position for those December games to matter.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, those three. I mean, you're talking about all it's missing is the Chiefs. Those should be the top 4 teams in the AFC, realistically. Now, you could argue that, and there are other teams. I'm sure Denver's like, what are you talking about? And Jacksonville, and who else? Maybe Pittsburgh if they sign Aaron Rodgers, like all these different things. But to me, if you're 7-4 in your first 11, and then you go into that stretch, well, finding a way to go 2-1, and honestly, even if they're not, even if they're 6-5 or 5-6, going 2-1 in that stretch, I say you take it, because it is going to be really tough. The good news is, as tough as that Ravens game is going to be in Baltimore, you get the mini bye before going to Buffalo, and then you face Baltimore again. And then it is the softer landing. Like if you do get out of there 2-1, well, maybe you finish the year 5-1. You go to Miami, and then you have the Cardinals and Browns. And so there's 2 real stretches here where it's really tough. And then it kind of gets a little, depending on what the Browns look like or the Bears look like, these teams with question marks, even the Steelers to a large degree, like the first 6 weeks, really tough, not many question marks, or you have to go on the road, even if you're playing a team like the Browns. And then that second part of the season, these 3 games, and really you could add 4, because the at Pittsburgh game, I think coming out of the bye is going to be huge. It's going to matter a lot. That's where the Bengals season kind of ended, is December 1st, that first Pittsburgh game last year. So that matchup could be big. But 13 through 15 is the, I'm not sure there's a tougher slate in a tougher 3 games for anyone, unless they play the Chiefs in there instead of the Ravens twice. I really, it's hard for me to picture. I mean, you could throw in the Eagles or whatever, but that's one of the tougher 3 game stretches without looking at anybody else's schedule in the NFL this season.
Yeah, you'd have to look at the Ravens schedule and see who they're playing in week 14. Probably. Like if the Ravens are playing the Eagles in week 14, I don't know if the Ravens play the Eagles this year. I haven't looked. Or if the Ravens are playing the Chiefs or something.
Yeah.
In week 14, then similar ball game there. But that is a very tough part of the schedule, and the Bengals have a bit of a history. They play
the Chiefs. They do play the Chiefs on the road. I don't know where, and they also have Buffalo.
They obviously can't play the Bills, but the Bengals do have a history of finishing years strong when Joe Burrow's healthy. They got to figure out the starts, but if they can figure out the starts and continue to be a team that hits its stride and figures out how to win and finishes season strong with a healthy Joe Burrow under Zach Taylor, which they have done, then that would be an ideal time if we follow that narrative to play these difficult games down the stretch. Obviously not ideal to start with some of these potentially challenging non-divisional games early, Lions, Broncos, Packers really standing out in weeks 4 to 6. Because I don't know who's playing quarterback yet for the Vikings. I expect the Vikings to be good, but there's that quarterback question there.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they're just out of whatever early season issues they have. Hopefully they survive the early stretch. Browns, Jaguars could be a harder start, right? The Browns could be in disarray this year again.
Mm-hmm.
Could be like that for them. Maybe the Jaguars are better. Maybe not. Maybe they should handle the Jaguars at home if they're a good team. So maybe you can color that with some orange tinted glasses. And then maybe if they are stumbling and they stumble their way to wins in those games, they figured it out by week 4. By the time you face some of these teams that were playoff contenders last year, Broncos, Lions, Packers.
I just looked at what I wrote last year when the schedule released.
Mm-hmm.
First bullet of my takeaways: fast start? Question mark.
we thought the early part of that schedule was so favorable.
Oh my goodness.
And it should have been.
Well, no doubt. I don't think it was wrong, but the point is like that lingers so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if they had failed to end strong, we'd be like, oh yeah, well, they're good at starting the season and give us false hope. And how do they end? How do they play in December? And it's the other way. And it's so weird because obviously December football is more meaningful, but you have to get there for it to matter. You can't be 4-8
mm-hmm.
or 6-8 and expect to rally and play the wild card and go on the road and do all that. So fast start, got to be the most important thing. The schedule's here, Jake. It means football's almost here. Camp's not far.
We get to talk about some other
far.
teams today for the first time in quite a while. It means I get to take a shot at the Steelers. How crazy is it that we have the Steelers or the NFL schedule, and we do not know who's playing quarterback for the Steelers
yet? I think he's older than us. I think he's Zach Taylor's age.
Might be. The one thing that we didn't really talk about today that we've talked about in past years that I have not spent the time to look at quite yet is rest disparity. We haven't looked at, for example, the Lions schedule or where other teams might be on short weeks coming in to a Bengals game. But the Bengals coming off Monday Night Football have a short week going into week 5 hosting the Lions. And then they have the short weeks for Thursday Night Football, the 2 AFC North Thursday night games that they have. Haven't looked at rest disparity besides that. We'll see if that's an issue this year. Last year, very imbalanced, not in the Bengals' favor. This year, it's that Ravens game. Thursday Night Football in Baltimore again.
Thanksgiving.
We have so many recurring themes. Start fast. Ravens, Thursday night on the road, and home road primetime disparity. Again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Let us know what you are looking forward to here on the Bengals schedule. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.